Welcome to today's tutorial, where we will be creating a 3D city builder game from scratch. In this video, we will cover everything from setting up our development environment to implementing core game mechanics. Let's get started. First, we need to set up our development environment. For this project, we will be using Java together with the popular 3D graphics library called JMonkey Engine. If you haven't installed JMonkey Engine yet, go ahead and download it from the official website. Once you've downloaded and installed JMonkey Engine, open the SDK and create a new project. Select Basic and give your project a name, such as 3D City Builder. Next, we will set up the main class for our game. In JMonkey Engine, the main class is where the game loop resides. Let's create a new Java class called MainApp. In this simple initApp method, we will initialize our game world. We'll start by setting a simple ground plane. To do this, we first need to create a new geometry and add it to the scene. Now that we have our ground plane, let's add some buildings. First, we can create a method that generates a random building. We'll use the box shape for now, but we can replace it with more complex models later. Next, let's add multiple buildings to our game world. We can do this inside the simple initApp method by calling the createBuilding method multiple times with random positions. Now that we have our basic city layout, let's implement a simple camera control mechanism so you can move around and explore the city. JMonkey Engine provides a built-in fly camera that we can enable. With the camera set up, let's now refine our game. We want to be able to interact with the buildings. For simplicity, let's display a message when a building is clicked. Let's implement the logic to determine which building was clicked. We will perform a ray cast from the camera to detect the building under the mouse cursor. Next, we'll add a basic UI to allow players to manage their city. For that, we will create a simple interface to display the selected building's information. We can create an XML file that defines our user interface. This will allow us to display information about the buildings and interact with them. Now, let's connect the selected building information to our UI. We'll update the text displayed whenever a building is clicked. Our basic city builder is coming together. Now, let's add some diversity to our city by introducing different building types. We can create a building type enum that defines various building types. Next, update the createBuilding method to take a building type and apply different colors or styles based on the building type. We can then modify the loop that generates the buildings to use different building types. Now, let's add a mechanism for building construction and demolishing. We will implement basic controls to allow players to place new buildings or remove existing ones based on what they select. Now, we will need to define the logic to build a structure when the B key is pressed. To facilitate placing buildings, we'll implement a function to handle the placement of a new building on a grid. Let's assume we want to place the building directly under the mouse cursor. We can also implement demolition. This would involve detaching the building geometry from the root node. Next up, we need to persist the city's state. We can implement a simple save and load mechanism using JSON to store building positions. For city data, you can store positions of buildings. For simplicity, we can just store the names and positions of the buildings. In the loading mechanism, we will read the JSON file and create the buildings based on the saved data. Now that we have the core functionality of the city builder game implemented, you may want to add more features. Consider adding a terrain to create a more realistic environment, adding different heights for buildings, or integrating a user interface for building selection. As we wrap up, feel free to customize the game further. Consider how you might want to add more interactive elements, complex building models, or even shaders for visual effects. Thank you for joining me in this 3D City Builder game tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something valuable. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more tutorials like this. Happy coding!